remember pro perks in MW2? This game changed how the perk system worked entirely. They weren't just something you equipped, they were something you earned. You wanted the pro version of sleight of hand, you had challenges to complete. And that's just one of 50 things removed from Call of Duty forever. Now on to COD points. The Black Ops 1 style, not the microtransaction currency we know today. This was the original in-game currency that you earned by playing the game. Every match, every challenge, every contract completed gave you COD points, and you could spend these however you wanted. You want to buy the gun early instead of leveling up? Go ahead. Want to customize your player card? Spend those points. It gave players agency over their progression. This system was removed after Black Ops 1, and while Black Ops 2 unlock tokens were kind of similar, they weren't nearly as satisfying. Now, speaking of COD points, let's talk about wager matches. This was one of the most unique modes Call of Duty ever introduced. In Black Ops 1, you could enter special game modes like One in the Chamber, Sticks and Stones, Gun Game, and Sharpshooter, and actually bet your hard-earned COD points. The top 3 players would actually win COD points, while everyone else lost their ante. It was high stakes, intense, and incredibly fun. Wager matches added a gambling element that made every kill matter even more. Unfortunately, this mode never returned after Black Ops 1, likely due to concerns about gambling mechanics in games and a shift towards a microtransaction-based COD point. And while we're on the progression system, we cannot forget the contract system. Introduced in Black Ops 1 and refined in games like Advanced Warfare, contracts were daily and weekly challenges that rewarded you with COD points or exclusive items. They weren't just passive challenges. You had to actively purchase them with your currency, adding a risk-reward element. Complete the contract, get paid. And if you fail, you're out of those COD points that you spent to buy it. The system was replaced by the simplified daily challenge systems we see today, which just don't have the same bite. Now, Call of Duty used to let you express yourself in ways that modern games just don't. You remember custom emblems? Yeah, this started in Black Ops 1. You could create your own personal player card emblem using layers, shapes, and colors. Now, people made everything from hilarious memes to impressive works of art to, well, let's just say some of these were inappropriate. Custom emblems stuck around through Black Ops 3 and 4 and World War II, but they've been removed in recent titles. Now, we're all assuming this is probably due to moderation concerns. Now we're just stuck with these AI emblems and calling cards, which is just kind of pathetic. Now, taking customization even farther was paint jobs in Black Ops 3. You could create custom camos for your weapons, painting them however you wanted. Want a hot pink sniper rifle with flames? Go for it. You want to create your favorite skin from another game? Knock yourself out. The level of detail you could achieve was impressive, and it made your guns feel truly yours. Now, Black Ops 4 brought paint jobs back, but they've since kind of disappeared since. And I gotta be honest with you, the reason I think they disappeared was because they want to sell you blueprints. Now, let's also talk about gun variants. Specifically, the system from Advanced Warfare. These weren't just different skins, they were actually variations of the weapons with different stats. The Speakeasy, the Obsidian Steed, the Inferno, these legendary variants had different fire rates, damage profiles, and handling characteristics. Some were straight up insane upgrades. Now, this of course added a depth to the loot system and made opening supply drops kind of exciting. Now, while variants appeared in other games like Infinite Warfare and World War II, they obviously have disappeared in favor of what we just talked about, the blueprint system. And actually calling back to Advanced Warfare, does anybody remember customizable kill streaks? This was a feature that this game brought in where you could modify your streaks with a different module. You want your UAV to have extra assist points or speed or threat detection? You could customize it. Same with the bombing runs, sentry guns, and all the other streaks. It really gave you control over how the streaks functioned and let you tailor them to your own playstyle. This system never returned, which is a shame because it added kind of a strategic depth the killstreak selection. Now, Ghost gets a lot of hate, but it actually did introduce several innovative features that were removed or never seen again. Let's start with leaning. In Ghost, you could lean around corners while aiming down sights. This gave you a tactical advantage while exposing less of your body. It was pretty contextual. Stand near a corner and you could peek. This mechanic added a little bit of a layer to tactical gameplay that actually rewarded careful positioning. After Ghost, though, leaning was pretty much removed from multiplayer entirely, and in the newer CODs has kind of been replaced with the mounting technique. Ghost also gave us dynamic maps. These were maps that changed during the match based on players' actions or just random events. If you remember the pre-order bonus map Free Fall, this would collapse as the match progressed. Strike Zone's environment could be completely altered if you got a chem strike, and you could even blow up an entire gas station in Octane. The idea was to keep matches fresh and unpredictable. Now, while it was kind of impressive technically, dynamic maps were kind of criticized for being gimmicky and kind of copying Battlefield back in the day. After that, they really haven't returned in any meaningful way since. Now let's stay with Ghosts, and let's talk about Satcoms. Instead of the traditional UAV, Ghost used a Satcom as the lowest kill streak. Now, one Satcom gave you like directional indicators, 2 gave you a sweeping radar, I think 3 gave you an even faster sweeping radar, and then 4 maybe gave you a complete like VSAT. It was something like that. The idea was multiple players could stack these Satcoms for better intel. In theory, it felt like a good idea, but the community didn't really like the change, and the traditional UAV returned in future games. I bet you guys forgot about field orders. You'd find a briefcase on the map dropped by the first player to die, and picking it up gave you a random challenge. Complete it by getting a knife kill, or kill somebody while you're prone, or teabag somebody, and you would earn a care package with a random streak. Now, on certain maps like we talked about earlier, like Strike Zone, you would even earn a chem strike, changing the map entirely. Field orders added a randomness to the match, and it could turn the tide unexpectedly. While field upgrades and field orders in newer games kind of share a name, they're not anywhere close to the same thing. Now, Ghost also actually featured some unusual kill streaks as well. This was Michael Myers and the Predator. Now, these were temporary transformations where you became the horror icon with unique abilities. Michael Myers had his knife, the Predator had like the X-ray vision. They were pure fan service and incredibly fun to use. Now, I also think that I like these because they stayed on specific maps. There wasn't Predator running around Stonehaven. It was just the maps tied to that character itself. Unfortunately, this has kind of come back, but now it's collabs on everything and everywhere. It's just not the same, and it becomes very Fortnite-ish now. And one more thing from COD Ghosts, we can't forget about Extinction mode. Ghost's attempt at a co-op survival mode was to rival zombies. Instead of zombies, you fought aliens called cryptids across different maps with unique objectives. It had a progression system, class setups, a continuing story, and while it had its fans, Extinction never reached the popularity of zombies and was dropped after Ghost. To some people, it remains one of the most underrated co-op modes in COD history. I am not one of those people. Now, for a few years, Call of Duty went vertical, and the community was very divided. Exo movement and jetpacks debuted in Advanced Warfare in 2014 and continued through BO3 and Infinite Warfare. The exosuits gave you boost jumps and dodges and verticality that completely changed how COD played. Suddenly, gunfights were three-dimensional. You could boost over buildings, dodge incoming fire, and outmaneuver opponents in ways previously impossible. Some players loved the skill ceiling and fast-paced action, and others felt it strayed too far from COD's roots. After Infinite Warfare's poor reception, the series returned to boots on the ground gameplay, and jetpacks haven't returned since. Now let's stay in that kind of area of movement with wall running. And Black Ops 3 was the first game to introduce this advanced movement. Certain maps had wall running lanes and let you flank enemies or access alternate routes. It looked cool and added another layer to transverse the map. But like jetpacks, wall running was controversial and disappeared after Infinite Warfare. The mechanic required maps specifically designed around it, and with the community demanding boots on the ground gameplay, wall running became another relic of COD's experimental phase. Now, another thing in this experimental phase was actually specialists. Now, these were characters with unique abilities and weapons. Instead of everyone having the same tools, you'd choose a specialist like Ruin with his gravity spikes, or Battery with her grenade launcher, or Nomad with his dog. Specialists added a hero shooter element to COD, making each player unique and introducing abilities that could change the tide of a battle. However, many felt that this took away from COD's core gunplay focused identity and introduced too many easy kill mechanics. MW19 returned to operators who were purely cosmetic, and while specialists had their fans, the community largely prefers traditional COD gameplay, and this system hasn't returned either. Now let's talk about some of the features that were controversial when they existed, but are oddly sometimes missed by players. Number one is Martyrdom, the perk that dropped a live grenade when you died. Was it cheap? Absolutely. Did it get you killed more times than you'd like to admit? Yeah, but it was also hilarious and it kept you on your toes. Martyrdom was removed after community outcry deemed too frustrating and random. Now similarly, Last Stand and its variants let you pull out a pistol after being downed. It gave you one last chance to get revenge. Like Martyrdom, it was considered a crutch perk and was incredibly annoying to play against. Both Last Stand and Martyrdom represented COD's earlier, more chaotic design philosophy. They were both removed obviously to make gameplay more skill-based and less frustrating. Speaking of controversial mechanics, we gotta discuss death streaks. Introduced in MW2 and continued through MW3, death streaks were rewards for dying repeatedly without getting a kill. Copycat let you steal the killer's class. Painkiller gave you extra health on spawn. And Dead Man's Hand let you trigger an explosive after death. The idea was to help struggling players, but in practice, they rewarded bad play and frustrated skilled players. Death streaks were universally disliked and have not returned since. And who could forget the panic knife? In older CODs, your melee was always a one hit, and that lunge was generous. How many times did you get someone down to one shot only for them to turn around and knife you from 5 feet away? The panic knife was the ultimate oh crap button. Now Black Ops 3 was the first to change melee to require 2 hits, ending the panic knife era. And while more balanced nowadays, there was just something nostalgic about that instant kill desperation lunge. And who can forget this one? The tactical insertion. This was a tactical equipment that let you place your respawn point. This was perfect for objective modes, but it was also heavily abused for spawn boosting and camping in corners, and some of you maybe got your first nuke because of this. Now, tactical insertion was removed as a standalone tactical equipment, though it's returned in various forms as a field upgrade in recent games. But nothing beats the ability to control your spawn every single life. Now let's talk about something that I know you forgot about. Turrets in multiplayer maps. Yes, maps like Karachi and MW2 had mounted turrets that you could use in the middle of a multiplayer match. They were powerful, but they left you exposed, creating a risk-reward scenario and unique power positions on the map. Now, obviously, environmental kill streaks or interactive elements like this have largely disappeared in favor of the more cleaner, more competitive map design. But MW2 and World at War had turrets. Just think about that for a second. Now we have map vetoing. Now, this was a feature in older CODs where the lobby could vote to skip a map and get a random alternative. It gave players some control on what they played and kept things from feeling stale. While map voting still exists in some of the newer titles, the full veto system has been removed, and now we're often at the mercy of a rotation or forced to back out if we don't like the map. Now, speaking of lobbies and backing out, do you remember the lobby leaderboard? Now, before matchmaking broke up lobbies every match, you could see the leaderboard showing everyone's stats in the lobby. KD, wins, score per minute, everything. It created a sense of competition before the match even started. You knew who the sweats were, and you know who you needed to watch out for. On top of that, you knew who you maybe could beat up. With skill-based matchmaking and disbanding lobbies, persistent lobbies and leaderboards have become a thing of the past. Another thing that's in the past is actually something called peer hosting. Now, in older CODs, one player in the lobby actually hosted the game. If you were the host, you had a connection advantage. If the host left, you'd get a migrating host mid-match, which was always a weird thing. While dedicated servers are objectively better and more fair, there was something charmingly chaotic about peer hosting. Also, who can forget in the very early Call of Duties, when the host left, it actually ended the game. yeah, maybe it is better we have dedicated servers now. Now let's go back to when Call of Duty was experimenting a little bit, and this is the third-person mode in Modern Warfare 2. Now, other titles have had this as a mode as well, but MW3 had its own playlist. It changed the game entirely. Corner camping became viable, awareness was different, and it just felt unique. Now, I'm also wondering if back in the day they were trying to compete with Gears of War or other games, but third-person playlists haven't really appeared that often. In some modes, you can still do it, but I'm going to be honest with you, it's kind of a relic of the past as well. Now, this one I absolutely loved, and this was Faceoff mode. In MW3, this was a small map competitive gameplay mode. There was 1v1, 2v2, 3v3 matches on tiny maps designed specifically for these player counts. It was intense and required different strategies than these standard modes. Now, while we got Gunfight in Modern Warfare 2019, there is something different about that Face-Off playlist in MW3. Now, another mode was the old school mode. This was a throwback playlist that removed perks, kill streaks, and custom classes, and everyone spawned with the same weapons, health regeneration was slow or removed, and you had to pick up weapons from the map. It was COD at its most basic. And it was actually really fun. Old school mode hasn't appeared in recent titles, but it might be perfect as a limited time mode for the nostalgic players. And I know some of you forgot this mode. This was Safeguard. And it was a mode in Black Ops 3 where one team escorted a robot to the enemy base while the other team tried to stop them. It was like a combination of escort missions and tug of war. Safeguard was fun and strategic, but hasn't really returned. And something that hasn't returned, and I don't know why it hasn't, is Headquarters. This is from Call of Duty World War II. It was a social space where you could see other players, access challenges, open supply drops, test weapons at the firing range, and commend other players even if you wanted to. It made the game feel more social and connected. Obviously, this was pretty much a blatant ripoff of the Destiny hub as well, but I'm not gonna lie to you, this concept was amazing, and if we could have kept it going in future CODs, who knows what it would have turned into. And we had just talked about Gunfight in the previous Face-Off mode, but do you remember Gunfight tournaments? In Modern Warfare 2019, there were 2v2 single elimination tournaments where you competed for exclusive rewards. They were tense, competitive, and incredibly satisfying to win. While Gunfight itself still exists, the tournament format has largely disappeared, which is unfortunate because it gave Gunfight a competitive framework. And I don't know about you, I played Gunfight a ton in MW19 because of this. How can we forget about this? Supply drops. These dominated COD from Advanced Warfare all the way up until World War II. These were loot boxes you could earn or buy that contained random weapons, camos, variants, and cosmetics in the game. While they added some excitement, they were also heavily criticized for lacking meaningful content behind RNG and encouraging gambling mechanics. After massive backlash, especially in games like Black Ops 4, COD moved to battle passes and store bundles. While the current system is more transparent, there was something kind of exciting about opening supply drops, but don't tell them I said that. Clan versus clan playlists and clan wars. These were dedicated modes where clans could compete against each other for rewards and bragging rights. Modern Warfare 3 and Ghost had these clan systems deeply integrated into the game. Now clans are kind of a thing of the past and dedicated clan features are completely gone. Something that MW3 did that was kind of cool, or maybe it was kind of bad depending on who you are, was the Elite membership. Now this was Activision's attempt at a premium subscription service for Call of Duty. Modern Warfare 3 introduced the Call of Duty Elite, which offered stat tracking, exclusive content, and early access to all the DLC. It was ahead of its time in some ways, but it was clunky and eventually discontinued. The idea, of course, would return later with things like a battle pass, but Elite was actually a separate subscription that just never caught on. Now, Modern Warfare 2019 introduced a Realism mode, which was essentially hardcore, but even more realistic. No HUD, realistic damage, friendly fire. It was the closest COD had come to a mil sim in its history. Realism mode was available at launch, but has mostly disappeared from playlists, probably due to low player counts. Those who enjoyed it really loved it, but the casual audience preferred core or hardcore. Now, manual healing was introduced in Black Ops 4, where instead of regenerating health automatically, you had to press a button to use a stim shot. It added a skill gap and made gunfight positioning more important. However, many players disliked this change, feeling like it was too cracked or too punishing. Manual healing hasn't returned since. Also, something Black Ops 4 did was the Fog of War, and this was a change to the minimap to show enemy positions only when teammates had a line of sight on them. Instead of the full map UAV sweeps, you got partial information based on where your team was looking. It was more realistic and tactical, but also super confusing. The traditional minimap returned in Modern Warfare 19. Kinda. There was no red dots. How about this? Do you remember when tanks were in standard matchmaking modes like Team Deathmatch? In World at War and some other titles, tanks were available on certain maps as controllable vehicles. They were powerful, but of course had their weaknesses. Tanks in standard modes haven't appeared in recent CODs outside of the Ground War or Warzone, and the community is pretty split on vehicles, I would say. Some of them love them, and others feel that they don't belong in traditional 6v6 modes. But I'm not gonna lie to you, I do remember using that tank running around Downfall in World at War. And speaking of World at War, we gotta talk about map packs. This was how COD delivered post-launch content for over a decade. You'd buy a season pass or an individual DLC pack that included 4 new maps and sometimes a zombies map. It was straightforward, but it split the player base since not everyone owned the DLC. A fun fact about this, in Call of Duty World at War, if one of your friends owned the DLC and your other didn't, he would still get put into that same match, load into it, but then once the game started, he would get kicked out, totally splitting the player base and not the smartest of moves. MW3 actually introduced a new system where you could disable it if you were playing with a friend. Now, who can forget gestures? These were introduced in MW19, letting you flip off enemies, wave, or do other emotes. Now, obviously, emotes were in previous Call of Duties, but the individual hand motions were actually something that added some personality to MW19. And while they still exist in those games, they haven't really been brought back, but there is a rumor that they'll be returning in MW4. Next up is Vanguard, and Vanguard didn't do a lot right, but they did introduce something called combat pacing. Now, this would let you select tactical, assault, or blitz, and this is a different style for each match. It gave players control over the chaos they wanted. Blitz would be a higher player count, assault would be standard, tactical would be a low player count. Combat pacing was specific to Vanguard's design, but hasn't returned, which is unfortunate because I think most people that actually played Vanguard loved this feature. Now, here's one that I miss: split screen online play. This used to be a staple feature. You and a friend could sit on the same couch, sign in as a guest, and play online together. It was perfect for those casual gaming sessions and made COD a social experience. Now, while split screen still exists in some modes, it's been removed or limited in others. And also, when you saw a guest account on the other team, you were in for a good time, man. Speaking of things that got removed, what about forced game chat? This was a feature in Search and Destroy and some other modes where everyone in the match was in the same voice channel. You could hear the enemies, leading to trash talk and funny moments, and this was removed because party chat became a thing later on. But MW2 was one of the only Call of Duties, if you were in Search and Destroy, that made you switch to the actual game chat, even if you were in a party. Some of the most memorable moments and clips of all time was because forced game chat was a thing. How about something for your cell phone? The Call of Duty app. This was a companion app for your phone that let you customize classes on the go, check clan info, view stats, and even control your operator selection in Advanced Warfare and Ghosts. It was convenient for theory crafting loadouts while away from your console or PC, but the app has been discontinued. And while some of the features are now on the COD website, the dedicated app experience is completely gone. Here's a recent one: tac stance in MW3. This was a new aiming mechanic where you could angle your gun for faster mobility while still having some ADS benefits. It was somewhere between hip fire and full ADS. Now, tac stance was unique to MW3 and really hasn't carried forward, showing that even recent innovations can be just a one-game experiment. And this is either going to get some people upset or happy. Carry forward. This was a system in MW2 and MW3 where weapons and operators and content would carry over to the next game. While this sounds good in theory, it was very controversial because of one game: Black Ops 6. Yeah, there was a few collabs in here that didn't really make sense, and people got very, very tired of it, not wanting it in Black Ops 7. So it was completely canceled and really hasn't been talked about since. Another thing that's become very popular lately is extraction shooters, and Call of Duty actually had one called DMZ. It was introduced alongside Warzone 2 as an extraction-based mode where you deployed, completed missions, looted, and tried to extract successfully. It was COD's take on Escape from Tarkov and had a pretty dedicated fan base and still does. However, DMZ received less and less support over time and has been sidelined in favor of continuing to support the Battle Royale. Now, fans are hoping, and it seems like it's going to happen and return in Modern Warfare 4. Will it be better? I hope. And how about something that never returned that was very odd, and it was the division system. Call of Duty World War II replaced the create a class at launch with preset classes like infantry, airborne, and mountain. Each division had specific weapons and perks associated with it, and while it encouraged different play styles, the community largely disliked losing the freedom of create a class, and once Sledgehammer fired Glenn Schofield and Michael Condrey, they had a complete overhaul and got rid of this system forever. And there you have it, folks. That is 50 things that were removed from Call of Duty throughout the years. Let me know in the comments down below, what is the one thing out of this entire list that you would bring back to Call of Duty? There's so much that I would do, honestly. Sometimes I think emblems would be fun again if they had some sort of monitoring system on it that it didn't get so crazy. Force game chat would be fun. I mean, COD points. There's too many, actually. I'm asking you guys to do something I can't even do. But you know what? Do it anyway. Hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you in the next one.